If it's that dreaded time to replace your hybrid battery, I'm going to show you in this video a quick process where you can take the battery out and deep cycle all the cells and recondition it back to almost like new. This requires disassembling the battery pack to replace each individual cell, or reconditioning the cells that are in the pack. The battery is under the rear seats. To remove those, you'll have a set of 12mm bolts and take these vents out. It's pretty straightforward. With the seats out, it's pretty grody, but you'll notice there's 3 clips back here. One under there, you can pop up this cover, one under here, one under there, and then all this carpet will just roll back over on top of itself. With the carpet folded up out of there, you have access to all your paneling. With a hybrid battery, this stuff is stuck down. This soundproofing plastic mat is just double-sided, like tar tape on both sides. Take that loose. And you have some more plastic covers to take out of here, and that pretty much should be the last of it before you can start unbolting this stuff. And you'll have a whole series of 10mm and 12mm bolts all around the outside of this thing to take the outside whole shell off. With the cover out, you have full access to all 3 modules. Something I noticed upon the initial disassembly of this battery was how when I got the top off, this thing is so matted up with hair. So your vents that draw in air from your fans, if there's the least little bit of hair or anything in the way of your floor down here, every bit of that stuff's getting sucked into the battery, and it's never going to make its way out until it's being reconditioned. So you can imagine how much this hinders airflow with hair and dust and dirt, and excess heat will cause a battery to fail. So something to keep in mind. In my situation, however, I bought a reconditioned battery pack and deep cycled all the cells using the high-tech X4 AC Plus battery charger that can deep cycle, discharge, and charge 4 battery cells at a time. This process can also be done with little single battery chargers. These are used for little RC cars or remote controlled planes. Any electronics parts store that sells that kind of stuff should have these. You can pick these up at Hobby Lobby. And the process pretty much is connecting positive terminal, negative terminal, and deep cycling each one of these cells down to a bare minimum voltage, and then bringing them back up to a full capacity. And that's what I've done here. Once you have those figures in place, you'll know which of these cells are bad and which of these cells are still good. And you can replace just the bad cells. So this whole pack is run in series, and oftentimes the center cells will end up getting the hottest the first and burn up. So if you replace this with all good cells, you can recondition this battery and pretty much have a battery that is in like new condition again at a fraction the cost. The settings I'm using on this is discharge to charge 3 cycles, current 3 charging amps, discharge rate at 1 amp down to 5.4 volts per cell, per individual cell. And when you go back to settings, I have the waste time at 5 minutes, safety timer off, capacity cutoff 7500 milliamps. And to go ahead and start each one of these cycles, I will just hold down start. I am spacing each one of these out so that this one will start to get warm, this one will get warm, and there's space in between them to where the fan can blow air across these plates and keep the cells cool. And then after I run this whole cycle, I will move each one of these over one. So these will go to the next one. And then by the third cycle, I will have completed this whole block assembly. Each one of these cell modules will charge up to almost about 12 volts per cell. It's charging at 3 amps. It'll fluctuate between about 11 and 12 volts as it charges, cools off, has a dwell cycle, and charges back up. So it's been about 24 hours and this just barely discharged anything on the first cycle. It charged up 7,500 milliamps on each one, and then during the second cycle it discharged 53. Third cycle it improved and went up to 5,859 milliamps. So that's what you want. You want it to be at least over that 5,000 milliamp range. This one was at 5195, went up to 58. That's looking great. And this one went 5193, 57. This one went from 51 up to 57. So showing major improvement, and I'm logging all this into a chart of what it initially discharged and charged. This is day 3 and numbers are coming out looking pretty good on these. Currently discharging around 3,000 milliamps on each one of these. Picked up a second charger so I could get through this a little bit quicker. Now if you end up with numbers that are real low, like it only is able to discharge around 3,000, 4,000 milliamps, you got to have at least that 5,000 milliamp capacity, preferably as high as 6,000 milliamps. And probably if you cycled this even more, you would probably get those numbers, but it's also hard on the battery. So I only run 3 cycles each. By that third cycle, you're close enough. So this pack's looking pretty good. So all of these cells have been charged and discharged 3 times now. And these are the numbers that I'm looking at. So the first discharge cycle, you can see they were pretty empty. This battery's probably been setting, didn't discharge much. Then they put in about the full capacity, which was 7,500 milliamps. So what you want to be looking at is the first discharge cycle. You want this to be over at least 5,000 milliamp discharge. And then as you can see, when it charged back up full capacity, next time it discharged, it increased from, around 52, 53 up to like 58. Each one of these increased significantly. And that's what you're going to want your third discharge cycle to be, at least, I'd say, over 5,000 milliamps, 5,500 to be exact. And these are pretty close to 6,000 milliamps. That's a pretty good battery pack. Now I did notice this one cell here, number 21. This is the notation for a bad cell. It's discharging only about 3,000 milliamps. You're only able to put in 2,300. Discharging 2,300 and then charging up 64. Now you're discharging 51 and you're only able to charge 1,000. These numbers just aren't good. You're not able to put in the full 7,500 milliamps and you're discharging at random rates. That's a sign there's, something shorted out in that cell, and that one's going to need to be replaced. Number 21 right here. Once you have all new known good cells discharged and charged 3 cycles, and you're at least over 5,500 milliamps per cell, and you're ready to build your block and put it back in the car, you have to balance your cells out. Now there's many different ways to do this, but the way I found it's easiest is just running all of your positives together. Keep it away from the negatives. This might look a little funky, but hey, it works. It doesn't take too long. and then put all your negatives together with a wire. Make sure they don't touch, and that will balance all your cells out. Now you'll have to do the same thing on the other side. So once you get both sides functional and you get your batteries built, you could connect these from block to block so that every single cell will be the exact same voltage, and over at about a 24-hour period all your amperage will equalize. It's very important to balance the battery before you put it back in the car, otherwise it'll notice, the computer system will notice a variance in the cells, and it'll notice that one is not as high as the other, and it'll throw a check hybrid system light. Had that happen a few times and it kept throwing me for a loop. So balancing your battery is a very, very crucial step. So this might not have been the best way to balance this, but it's practical, it's functional. So pretty much what I did is I just ran all the positives through one wire and looped it, and then all the negatives to one wire and looped it, and I've let it set for 24 hours. So this thing should be fully balanced now. It's one of the most crucial steps before installing one of these batteries. I thought that I had one cell that was really bad, number 21. No, I thought it was 20. Yeah, 21. This is backwards. I switched it around. So cell number 21 was not up to par. And rather than drill the rivets out and pull this end cap and replace one of these cells, I just decided, let me try and deep cycle it a few more times. So its readings weren't very good, and I deep cycled that a few more times, and it came back around. The next time it discharged was 57, next time it discharged was 58, and it charged back up. So I'm just going to assume that it probably came around, and then I ran cell number 27 again, discharged 53, 56, 58. So 3 more rounds on that one, came around as well. So just to see if this thing's fully balanced, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect my leads that is connecting all the positive cells together, all the negative cells together. So positive to negative on this run, we're looking at 10.67. And positive to negative on the other run, 10.68. That's close enough. So I think we were at 10.67, 10.68. Yeah, 10.67, 10.68. That's close enough. So that's 0.01 volt differential. That's close enough. So I'd say this thing's pretty well balanced. Now I'm going to yank out all of these blocks one by one, change them out. So I've got this yanked out, and it's pretty straightforward. You've got one joint here, got one joint here, and one wiring harness that connects to your temperature sensors on the bottom. And then you've also got one wiring connector here to take out. So the thing's pretty much a standalone unit. And then set it over here on the bench, and pretty much my idea would just be swap everything over. So take all this off, swap it over to this unit, and put that unit back in the car. I'm just going to continue to do that with all 3 of them, hook it all up, put the covers on it, drive it around, see how she does. This end cap was a little bit stubborn to get off here, but you can put a small flathead screwdriver or something to click these loose off the ends of the batteries. So they're little clips. You'll have a hair in here you'll have to remove. But yeah, you'll just push down on those and it'll release from these tabs on the battery so you don't break that. And then each one of the junctions have little clips. These will pop loose without breaking, hopefully.
I know one of the...
So yeah. So like so. And then you can just take all your screws loose. So that's the way that looks on the inside. And just swap it over to the other battery. When you take those off, first thing I noticed is on the back side of each one of these, you'll notice there's like a bit of oxidation and corrosion in there. It's very important to get that cleaned off. So you could just take some light sandpaper or a sanding pad, just lightly scuff over each one. You're going to want that surface as smooth as possible when you go back on, so that there's full continuity for when that touches and makes a connection there. So you can imagine that little bit of oxidation will prevent from good continuity flowing through that battery. So clean them up a little bit before you reinstall. You cleaning them up?
Yeah.
Giving them all a new bath? Making them shiny for me? They look pretty good, huh? Doing a good job, boy. Cleaning those little bad boys up, huh?
Cleaning those germs up.
Getting all the germs off of it?
Because you don't want the battery to get germs.
Swapping over the wiring, because some of these plugs, as you can see, this is the male side. So I don't know if one came out of a Lexus, one came out of a Toyota, but I'm going to swap this exact same wiring over here. Also got the same issue here. You got a male side. On this side, you got the female side. Same block, just a different input-output design, but same wiring. Swapping the wiring over. So swapping this harness over, because like I said, we've got female looking plug on this, and the existing harness out of the car is a male plug. So taking this harness, swapping it over here. So I've driven the car for about 2,000 miles now and filled up probably a half dozen times, and I've noticed the hybrid battery is definitely doing much better. It is averaging, I would say, somewhere around 70, 80 to 90 percentile range in the battery. Stays about 80% at all given times. So it's been about a month now, and I decided to go ahead and take this old battery that came out of the vehicle and deep cycle each one of these cells just to see how bad off we were on the milliamp capacity. So as you can see here, oh, children. The milliamp capacity by the third cycle is around 4,000 on most of these. Some of them were really low in the 3,000 milliamp hour range, so those will be discarded. Anything over the 5,000 range, some of these I even deep cycled another 3 times, so I went 6 total. But out of all the cells that I had here, I had about 12 of them that were good, over the 5,000 milliamp range. And the rest of them were just straight up bad, so they'll be discarded. So I've driven the vehicle probably about 3,000 miles now. And the first 1,000 miles I left the back seats out and the covers off so I could just make sure everything's working properly. And it seems to be doing great. I've noticed significant bump in fuel economy. I'm getting about 29 miles a gallon now, as opposed to the 24 I was getting. Everything seems to be charging and discharging properly. Haven't had any check engine lights, any hybrid system lights. So everything seems to be working great so far. Another thing I would note is